365 operations, right, for all Microsoft supported countries, 34 countries, right? And today we'll do an introduction session for GR, generic electronic reporting, right? So let's start with some slides, and after that we will do a demo as well. Guys, let me know if you see my deck.
It's not loaded yet. Okay, I can see it, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so first of all, we'll talk about what is electronic reporting domain area, what we understand by electronic reporting. We'll talk about GR basic concepts, why we developed it, and some major scenarios. We'll do demo. Also, we'll talk about some recommendation if you, for example, are planning to develop your own configurations based on GR stuff which we as Microsoft released. And we will talk about available documentation, and if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A session in the end. Okay, so first of all, what do we mean by electronic reporting, right? Again, point number one, if you think about localization, right, like functional localization, it's a big piece of code, part of Dynamics 365, right, or AX previously, Dynamics AX previously, right? So out of 40 million lines of code which we had for 2012 R3, around 9 million was about AX localization, right? And out of this 9 million, there are several functional areas which are, like, say, major blocks. And one of these blocks is actually electronic reporting. And by electronic reporting, we mean basically retrieving and transforming the data into some predefined by external authorities electronic formats, right? Examples are electronic payments, some electronic tax reporting, etc., right? So basically the important topic here, point here, is that the formats are not AX defined, D65 defined internally, but they're really defined by some external authorities, governments, some councils, etc. And basically, from the code perspective, it's quite big area of our localization, around 1 million lines of code. But I think what is even more important, right, and I think it's the most important topic here, right, that this is the area which is changed most often. It's changed very frequently. You see that, like, based on our statistics, about 40% of all regulatory updates, all the changes, are in this area, right? So, like, payment formats are changed frequently, governments are changing some requirements for tax reporting. I think you get the idea, right? So, this is the major area of, let's say, regulatory updates, regulatory churn, and it means also, of course, the code churn as we need to implement these changes. And also, due to some historical reasons, like for some previous versions, like 2012 or 2009, there were different ways of doing this electronic reporting for different functionality, right? Some specific stuff for payments, maybe other what we call engines for tax reporting, etc., right? So it's probably around 20 different engines, right, or ways of maintaining this electronic reporting, right? Which makes it even harder both for us and for partners and customers actually to do customization and maintenance in this area. So that was basically the major rationale, major reason why we decided to invest in this area and see what we can do differently in this area, right? So, and basically, the result of this effort is GR, or generic electronic reporting. So GR is a new configurable tool which allows to address these challenges, right, and create and maintain electronic reporting configuration without any coding, right? And I think that this is the main three principles, and principle number one, the most important here, right? So we are going from code changes, X++ changes, to configuration. And basically the idea is that we're targeting more like business persona, or maybe like you can say functional consultant persona, Simon in our internal speak, versus the developer. And basically all this GR functionality is in a web UI of Dynamics 365 for operations. And we are using Excel-like formula language, which allows you to define all your needed transformation. Second point, again, because we are trying to separate ourselves from D365, right? We define what's called data model, which is definition of this business domain. Like, for example, for payments, we're using ISO 222 standard. For defining what payment is, right? We can actually have one configuration, like one payment format, which would be available, could be supported in multiple, for example, D365 releases, right? Because basically there's a way, of course, there's some, and we talk about this, some dependency of IX data, right? But we isolate it, and it's very, very narrow, right, and defined very specifically. All other things, right, all the configuration you do, it's not dependent on D365 at all. And principle number 3, concept number 3, also, like, again, when you do a lot of these changes, what we faced before, when we did X++ development, right? So could be a lot of impact on partners and customers to do the uptake, to do the upgrade of the code which we release. So basically, we invested a lot in this area, and all the concepts which we were talking about, like GR configuration tree, is a tool to control dependencies, right? So you will see the way features and configuration appears on the tree actually allows us to say, okay, so this configuration was derived from the parent, and we can track what we call delta of changes in the child configuration, and do upgrade more smartly, I would say, right? Because we can compare these deltas, these changes between a new version which we're releasing and anything that you guys, for example, develop in your child configuration, and do this merge based on these deltas only, right? And in many cases, we can do this merge either automatically, right? Or even if it's requires some, let's say, decision from you, you would see very precisely, very specifically what type of change happened. So basically, we hope that it would allow us to make the upgrade more easy and automatic in many cases. Okay, so and just take an example, right? So what we're talking about, this is the definition of actually the SEPA format, right? So exactly, basically part of the European Union Council definition of SEPA credit transfer, right? So, and you see, it talks in terms of business entities defined in ISO 222, like payment, debtor, customer credit transfer, etc. So in GR, we have actually the same type of definition, what we call format, right? So format is actually, you just take this definition of ISO 222 credit transfer message, and you can easily create the format based on it. And again, as I said, this format is using global ISO 222 XML schema. And in GR, what we implemented, like for example for payments, we just created this data model, which is really just a subset of this ISO 222 standard, right? So if you are familiar with the standard, you would recognize a lot of names and like business entities there, right? So to again emphasize this point, right? So our GR data model is a definition of this domain, business domain, really in business terms, not in AX terms, right? So, and if we can use any, let's say, available standard, we are trying to do it, as we did it for ISO 222 for payments. Of course, this abstract data model, abstract schema is good, right? But you still need to do to fill this data model with real data, right? And for this, we are using this model mapping concept, and here you link, like, for example, what is payment information in your data model with real AX tables and fields or data entities. Right, and here I think that's the only point where we have the dependency on IX, right? Because so Dynamics 365, because you would need to really do this mapping to IX tables or entities. But after that, what we do for format definition, like payment format definition, you just using your data model. You don't use anything IX specific. And of course, also we have several additional concepts, right? For example, because we are generating some messages, and sometimes you need to provide additional information, like, I don't know, to select some specific like dates, or you can would need to filter your data before doing the output, right? And we have a way to configure dialogues, right? So basically to define what would appear in this dialogues, right? So you don't need to code it as well, right? So you just define what we call the user-defined parameters, and after that they would appear in the dialogue, and user during the runtime can actually choose values for the specific output. And after that time we provide the output, right? So basically it could be files. Also we now support different destinations, like for example you could put it to SharePoint site, or you can send these files via email, right? So, and this is also configurable, and we talk about it. Okay, and we are more or less, I think this is the final slide before we go to demo, right? So this is to talk about automatic upgrade and overall concept of GR configuration tree. So basically, again, all these configurations, they are arranged in a tree, right? So basically, this parent-child relationship. So let's take again the example of the payment domain, right? So we have this payment model, which is based on ISO XML standard, where we defined all these business entities. And after that, we can create a specific format, right? Payment format, for example, ISO 222, which is using this payment model, right? And you do the format mapping, right? Map this data from data model with the definition of the ISO 222 payment message. And after that, again, the way we are the customization of this GR formats should work. We are not allowing you to change the configuration which we did, right? For example, what Microsoft released, but you can also derive from our format configuration and create your own configuration, right? And by default, you would have all the definitions which we had on in our configuration, but you can change whatever you want. And as I said, we are tracking deltas, right? So any change you are doing, right, we are recording them. And after you done with your changes, you need to finalize it, we call a version, right? And you can use it. So in this example, you see that we release, for example, version 1 for this ISO 222 credit transfer configuration, and partner or customers created version 1.1 of this credit transfer with some small changes for a given bank, for example. After that, as I said, that we have a lot of changes, a lot of regulatory updates in this area, right? So let's assume that in 2017 we need to update this credit transfer format because, let's say, it has been changed, right? So we are releasing a new version, version 2, and also we track the deltas which we did, right? What has changed between version 1 and version 2. And after that, you can do what we call a base, right, to our new version, right? And we just kind of merge the deltas which you did with the deltas which exist on version 2, right? And you create version 2.1 of ISO 222 for your specific bank. So that's basically the idea, right? So we have this configuration tree. You use the derive functionality to create a new configuration, and using this deltas, we are able to track all the changes and basically allow to do as painless upgrade as possible. Okay, so just again, before we go to the demo, right? I think one thing, because I was talking about payment mostly, right? But it's just one domain which we are covering with GR, right? There are several other domains, right? As you see, like what we call statistical reporting, like for example, Interstat, sales list for Europe, a lot of tax report, invoices, etc. And I would say that basically we have around 200 features, right? And again, in localization, we have around 1,000 what we call features, right? Functionality for different countries, right? And around 200 of them are already covered using GR, right? And we have not released two big countries yet, India and Russia, right? So I think that it's quite a lot of functional coverage, so it's not only payments, right? So just to let you know. Okay, so that's I think enough for excuse me for slides. So let's go and see the demo in the product case. Just check. Everybody hears me well, right?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Okay, so basically again, what I would be doing, right, I would be playing the role of customer, right, in Great Britain. And basically I would need to do a customization of one of the payment formats for a specific bank. Again, so we have this, I'm in D365 operation UI, right? And basically you see that this electronic reporting workspace. Also, just to let you know, right, we are working on, like, based on GR, right, generic electronic reporting, we are working on what we call GTE tax engine, right, for India, right. So basically, we are planning to do some tax configurations as well, but this is something which would be released later, right. So we're not talking about it today. So okay, I'm going. This is the main form in GR, right? This configuration tree. I'm going here, and you see there are a lot of actually stuff there. It says around 300 configurations covering like 200 plus features. And basically, there are two main levels here, right? On the first level, we have what we call model, right? So usually this model is related to some kind of domain, right, or group of messages or reports, which we are covering using this model. And here we will be talking again about the payment model. So, and you see that we have this payment model, and under it we have a lot of different payment formats which are using this model. Okay, so if I am, and you see that I have this version of this payment model, which was released by Microsoft. And again, one topic which I think a question which is raised, right? Yes, GR is a flexible tool, right? And you can do a lot of things yourself there, but our principle was that everything which we supported in X++ before, now we're supporting using GR, and it means that we are releasing this configuration, these settings for all the features which were in X++ before, right? So for example, if you have did not do any customizations before, you don't need any customizations, right? You don't really even need to, let's say, use GR a lot, right? You can just select the right configuration and everything would work as it worked before, right? So it's not that you just need to do anything from scratch. You just need to use GR in case you want to develop anything, let's say, new functionality, new report, or you need to customize to extend the functionality which we as Microsoft provided for localization. So, okay, so I have this payment model configuration version. I can go to Designer and see all the content of it, right? And you see again, we talk about this ISO XML, right? And that's exactly kind of subset of this ISO XML standard. And you see that we also have here kind of tree structure, right? So basically, this is this, for example, credit transfer message, right? In ISO 222, and it contains several sub-entities, right? And main of them is like, for example, payments, right? And we see that payments also should have creditor with contact details, etc., right? So this is it could be like multiple levels of this embedded business entities, right? And of course, it's just mostly it's just entity and fields, right? Table field type of structure organized in a tree. Right? And all these things are in accordance with ISO XML standard. And you see, it has nothing about IX at all. So in order to actually get the data from IX, I need to do what we call mapping. And this mapping is definitely something which more or less you need IX knowledge, right? D65 knowledge to do it, right? So basically, but again, we did it for payment model or other models which we released. So if you just need to create a format, you don't even need to go here, right? And we don't even suppose that you are going here unless you really need to, let's say, customize the model, add some additional entities there, etc., right? Which are not supported by us. Also, one point here, right? I would not be showing it now because we're like kind of in a basic section, but we have a lot of additional functionalities developed recently for fall release. For example, now we support the import of payment formats, which is needed, right? And in this case, for example, you can do mapping not only to get the data from IX, but also to, let's say, pass the data to IX from the external file. But it's used the same model, the same principle, which we would be talking today. Okay, so I'm on this credit transfer mapping. And you see that, yeah, basically I have one model, but I can have like multiple mappings, right? So different, depending on the data sources in the system, or like from business perspective, it's like credit transfer or direct debit, it's kind of export or import, right? You can have multiple mappings, right, to fill the same abstract data model with the required data, right? So it's one model and multiple mappings. And also, like for example, if you need to map to different D65 versions, you can have just different mappings here as well. Okay, so I am in this model mapping designer, so I can use different. What is on the left-hand side? You see there's data sources. So I can map to different data model. I can map to different D365 for operations data sources like tables, classes, whatever I want, right? So I'm just choosing it, and after that it appears in data source node, and I do the mapping to my model, right? So for example, here you see I say that payments is equal to some not set transaction data source here, right? And if I look at what is this not sent transaction, I see that it's actually a formula, right? So basically it selects some ledger transactions based on the payment status, right? And we'll talk about formulas, formula language, just like in 5-10 minutes when we would be doing the example of format configuration, because we use the same formula language both for the model mapping and for the format mapping. Okay, so this is just things which are like an overview, right? And I would not really even need this to do my job, right? As a customer who needs to create this payment format. So let's come back to our task, right? And basically, because I'm in UK, right, there's a box. It's like a British standard payment format, right? More or less similar to SEPA in Europe, which we as Microsoft already have released and we support it. So basically what I need to do, I am working with a bank, let's say Barclays Bank in UK, and they ask me to do some customization to this format, right? Because they have changed this format a bit. So how I can make it? As we discussed before, you can't actually change anything which was released by Microsoft, right? We are not allowing it. You can actually view it, right? But you can't change it. So in order to do the customization, you say what is called derive. So you deriving from our configuration. I can call it Barclays, for example. I'm creating this configuration. And again, an important point to highlight here, you see that, right? A new version has been created, 1.1.1. So basically it's based on version 1 of the payment model, version 1 of Bucks UK configuration, Bucks UK format configuration. And this is like one first version of this Bucks Barclays configuration we are doing now. So this is the things, for example, when we would release like a new version in Bucks UK, right? You would be able to rebase, and then it would be like you have a new version which would have 1.2.1, right? So basically, which would be based on the version 2 of our Bucks UK configuration. Okay, so I created this format configuration version. I'm going to the format designer, and basically it contains of two major parts, let's say, business processes, right? Here, first of all, you have this file structure, right? So basically, message structure, right? So this one is quite simple. So it contains actually it's a text file. And you see all this with delimiters, you have all this definition, maximum lengths, etc., right? All the things which should be provided by some like government authority or a bank, right? And you can just enter them here or import them in case you have an example in XML, for example, XML schema. We can XML file, you can just import it to GR and it would create the structure for you automatically. Also, it has several reports, and this report is actually an Excel template. So basically what we supporting now, we're supporting Office outputs, for example, Microsoft Office Excel, Microsoft Office Word, right? So what you need to do, you need to actually create the template, or in many cases you just get the template, you import it to D365 again, right, this template, and after that it also like can create a structure for you, and you can use the mapping in the same way as you do for the text files, right? And I will show you an example, right, how it works. Okay, so this is the structure of the message, right, of the format, and on the mapping page, right, tab page, you really do fill this format with data, right? So basically you say, okay, my transaction is actually a list of payments, right? And after that, I need to link every field in the file with some field from the model, right? And let's, like, just for sake of example, we can say that our bank, right, Barclays, asked us to change the way we provide the vendor name, right? So, for example, they want it to be an uppercase and have some prefix in the beginning of the name, right? That's the requirement. How to do it? I'm using the Formula Designer, right? So basically, I'm here in this Formula Designer form. I'm in Formula Designer screen, and on the left-hand side, I have my data sources, and main of these data sources is model, right? And this exactly, again, I want to highlight it. You see that we don't work with IX or the 65 for operation at all here. You do the mapping based on this data model defined in ISO 222 terms. So you see this creditor, currency, debtor, etc. Right? All the information which we saw before, right? So basically, you do the mapping from the model, right? And here it's very simple, right? So I just take as a creditor name from the payments. On the right-hand side, this is the list of available functions, right? Which you can use to do the transformations. And again, in many cases where it's possible, we try to make these functions as similar to Excel functions as possible, right? Or if this function in Excel exists, right? And of course, for functions, we also have some definition, right? So what exactly this function is doing, right? So let's say I want to use the upper function actually to make it in uppercase, as I said. Yeah, and also, as I said, I'm doing the prefix, so it's also like Excel alike, so I can do this like this, right? So, also, again, what we can do here, right? This one is probably pretty simple formula, right? But there could be more complex ones, so you can do the testing, right? So basically, you can provide some parameters for your functions, right? And it would show you the result. So basically, you can test whether the function is doing what you expect it to do, right? So in this case, we have this Cantosa GBSI, yes, so that's what I wanted. So I have Cantosa in the beginning and I have GBSI in upper cases, right? So let's say that's all I want to do. And I'm done with my changes. I'm saving it. And after that, we will see how I can actually use this change configuration in my real, let's say, payment scenario, right? Let's go to the vendor payments journal, right? And you see it's standard functionality, nothing specific here. I have a couple of payments here. I change the status to none. And let's see, for example, first, right, we already had this Bucks UK configuration. So let me go here. What type of the output it provides? So again, so the configuration, you need to select configuration in method of payment form, right? So we have this GR export format field, and you can select one of the available configurations here. I have this Bucks UK here, and if you notice, my configuration did not appear there, and I will talk in a minute why it is the case. Okay, so I'm just using my old configuration when Microsoft provided before. So I'm saying generate payment. Nothing to change here. Yeah, I have the screen, and again, this controls are actually defined in GR as we talked about before, right? So basically, I don't need to write X++ code for this. Okay, and if we look at the file, we will see that this is consumer equipment. It's not in uppercase, right? It's name of my vendor. So this is the way it worked before, right? So what I need to do actually to use my new configuration now? First of all, right, I need to change the status of my version, right? Because now it's in draft status. It means that I'm still working on it, right? So basically, when I'm done with my changes, I need to say that it's complete. And say like Bucks for Barclays. Okay. I'm completing my version. And after the changes are done, right, so I already have new draft if I want to start working on it, right? But now this version 1.1.1 is completed. So I can come back to my payment journal. I'm changing this lines, status. Okay, go into method of payment. And here, see in the export format configuration, I have my Bucks Barclays now. But also, if you notice right here in the list of the format configurations, there's a list which is bigger actually than the one which appears in this lookup. Because also what we have an ability, you can define the country region code, right, which is applicable for this configuration, right? So I'm working in GBSI company for my payments, right? And basically, yeah, I'm saying that this configuration should be available in legal entities with GB country context, right? So that's basically the way you can limit your configuration to specific countries. Also, it's kind of an option, right? For example, you can also share some configurations to different countries if needed without code change, right? So, for example, in GR, right, you can just derive your configuration and add some additional country context, right? So, like develop payment formats, share the payment formats or any other tax reporting, etc., with different countries without any code change, right? So this is one of the feedbacks which we had for, let's say, country context implementation in IX before, right? At least if this feature is covered in GR, right? Now you have a way to, like, say, assign this feature to some additional countries if you need, or use it in different countries without changes of the code, properties in country context, etc. Okay, so I did the change, right? Defined my box for Barclays, and now I'm generating payment. Using my settings. So just press the button. Yep, so there will also print control report. And we'll see what has happened here. Yeah, so I have Cantosa in the beginning, right? And you see that the name of the vendor is in uppercase, right? So that basically is the change. This one is small, but I think you get the idea, right? So basically you are able to define the things to do the change in the formats without any coding, without changing X++ code. Also, one thing to notice, right, this control report functionality. So here is this defined based on the format, and you see that vendor name is still not changed here, right? Because in order to do it, I would need to change the mappings key as well, right? Because basically it's a different part of this format configuration. So basically I would need to go and change the mapping for this output, right? So here it's defined in the payment lines, right? So I would need to go here and change in the same way my output to the Excel file. So that's basically a simple demo, right? And again, as I said, that we are doing the examples for payments, but it's already covers a lot of areas, banks, some audit functionality, e-invoices, etc. And again, if you really, for example, nobody prevents you to create, say, your own model and define some new formats you want to use, right? So basically, it's not something which, it's probably recommended to look at what we already have developed, right? Because there's a lot of stuff there, but if really it's something not relevant for you, you need something completely new, you can do it in Jar as well, right? So it's quite flexible. It allows you to do it. Okay, guys, so let's switch to demo again. So what we talked about, right? We talked about electronic reporting workspace. We talked about configuration providers, right? So basically like Cantosa, we design the format, complete inversion, right? one thing which we did not talk about before now is this configuration destination. And basically, configuration destination, right? So you saw that in example which I did, all right? I just put the file to this folder, right? And that's it, right? Of course, it's not everything what is needed, right? So in many cases, especially for payments and for other areas, you need to put it somewhere like on a SharePoint site, or you can do it in send it via mail, right? So basically, to do this, you can use the functionality what we call electronic reporting destination. And here, right, you can again flexibly configure the way you want to save this output, right? So basically, I'm coming here. I need to choose the my format, right? So for example, it's Bucks Barclays now. And I can do the configuration, as you see, like for everything, right? This Bucks Airport folder is basically all these three components, right? Or I can separately say that, for example, I want to do one thing for this text file, and for example, I can put it on the SharePoint folder, right? And for example, this control report, I want to send it via mail, right? So it's also possible, right? So you have a granularity here, which you can use in some scenarios, right? So this is like a file. And after that, I can do the settings, right? So I'm saying so this for this file, and here's the list of destinations. Is basically everything which we support in the paint management, right? And I can say, okay, I want to put it via to mail. And what is important here also, right? So that you can actually use the same formal language which we talk about, right? So you are not limited to what we have in D365, right? Data for vendors and customers, right? When you have these email addresses, right? If you really need to kind of flexibly set up your mailing list, you can do it here using JAR formal language. And actually, I heard about several customers who are already doing this, right? So basically using this flexibility. I can put it also to the archive. So again, anything which is supported by print management here, I put it to file. Or I can say, okay, in some cases, for example, I don't even need to, let's say, save it, preserve it somewhere, just put it to the screen, like preview, and that's it, right? And also some options to integrate with Power BI as well. So that's basically the idea of print management destination. Electronic reporting destination is based on print management destination, right? But as you see, it gives you more flexibility. So, like for example, use JAR formal language for emailing configuration, etc. Right? And again, you don't need any coding here, right? So as soon as you, for example, in print management, right, you can't really easily integrate new documents, right, which you create without code change, right, because the list of those documents is defined. Here, as soon as you define a new configuration, you can set up its output, right, the way it should be sent flexibly, right, and without any code changes. One thing which I did not show before, right, about this configuration provider. You did this kind of create the version, you completed it, but that's not all, right? Because like it's available only in your instance, right? So in order to share it, we use what we call LCS repository, right? And LCS repository, it consists of two parts. For Microsoft, we are putting it in, let me try to show it here, LCS. Yeah, we are putting it to the shared asset library, right? So basically you would be able, everybody would be able to see it, right? And download all the configuration which we have. And let's see it here. Yes, shared asset library. And you see this 282 jar configurations defined here, right? And for actually, if you are doing your own customization, create your own configuration, you can store them, share them using your project asset library, right? So you can create the LCS repository associated with your project, right? And after that, you can just say share in jar, and it would put it to asset library in your project. And again, depending on your scenarios, like if you want to share it across several implementation, you can use like also LCS functionality of shared asset library for your organization, for example, right? So it's also possible if needed. Okay, so that's basically we talk about more or less everything according to the demo plan. So what else we want to say here, right? So basically some advice on the how you can use GR and update your solution features. First of all, again, of course, you need to review your functionality. After that, it's very important to identify the main areas, right? Because our recommendation, again, if we created a model like payment model, right, we want you to use it, right? So basically, like you saw, we have like dozens of the formats, right? So basically, like across all the countries we support, right? So basically, our experience shows that this model is more or less enough for, at least for now, right, for all the payment formats which we defined before, right? And basically, I believe that it's more or less should be the same for you, right? Also, second, after that, of course, you need to review our configurations, right? And for example, if like in case of bugs, right, probably you need to use the configuration which you would like to derive from, right? Which would be a base for you, right? Instead of creating it from scratch. Yeah, and basically, again, from automation perspective, right, we support, like, for example, if you have an XML file with your, let's say, payment format message, you can just import it, or you Excel template provided by some external parties, you can also import it, and it creates a format structure for you, right? So you don't need to design it manually, but of course, if required, you can do it in this visual editor. Also, what we didn't talk about, but we support labels and translation availability, right? So basically, all the text, right? For example, in GR, right, you can use what we call GR labels, right? So create, they are not like D65 labels, right? It's a separate, they are stored in this configuration file, right? So basically, there's a way to define this label and use our translation service to do the translation, right? So if you need to internationalize, to localize your functionality, you can use it in the same way as we are doing. And again, of course, you would need for Excel configuration, you need to define some ranges, because we are using ranges to really do the mapping between Excel template and GR. Some information about resources, documentation, right? We have quite a lot of wiki pages about GR, some overview about the recommendation of the life cycle, about some specific functions like of GR, like formula designer, destination where managed, right? So please go and have a look at them, right? There are quite a lot of documentation here. And also we have several task guides which provides the description of how you can do the basic steps, some of which we described before, right? So like how you can design your format, how you can map a data model to data sources, etc., etc. Okay, guys, that's it. I think we have 8 minutes for questions.